So, when I was riding around doing that little vlog the other day, the one thing when I got back that I kind of appreciated after I'd sort of done my own commentary to my own ride was how lucky I am to have passed my bike test when I did, and also, you know, 45 years I think it is later, still being able to use that privilege of that full license to basically ride any motorbike I want, but to just enjoy motorcycling. So it got me thinking back to that fateful day in 1981 when I took my bike test. It was extremely stressful and anxiety inducing, so I thought what I'd try and do for this little video was just recreate it, so that you could appreciate what it took to pass a bike test back then. So we'll get down to the scene of the crime, as it were, and try not to get hit by a taxi reversing. Yeah, and I'll run you through what it took for me to get my full license. So, see you in a bit. Right, so here we are. That building over to my right was the old test centre where you came to obtain your bike licence. So back in 1981, this is where I turned up, fresh-faced young 18-year-old. Obviously I wasn't on this little beauty. I was on my bike at the time, which was a lovely little Kawasaki KE175, my pride and joy. So I turn up at the test centre, meet the examiner. Examiner takes me out to the car park and asks me a few rudimentary questions on the highway code. Answer them okay. He points to a car further down on the car park and says, "Can you read the registration?" So I duly did. And then he said, "Okay, we'll start now on the sort of practical side of the test." So he says, "What I want you to do is get back on your bike and basically ride around the block." So essentially it's a series of 3 left-hand turns to bring me back to this point here. And he said, "I want you to keep riding around safely, obviously, to the rules of the road, and at some point during one of those laps," he said, "I'll step out from the curb, I'll hold up my clipboard, and when I do that I want you to do an emergency stop." Okay, fair enough. So I gets back on my bike, I gets ready to go out on my test, wondering if there's any more to it than that. There really isn't, as I found out later. God, no idea what that was. Yeah, and set off to do my test. So it was visor down, start the engine, and I guess at that point we're back in 1981. So this is the motorcycle test, 1981 style. So it's literally a case of riding round this block and the examiner is walking it. So I am literally, and as you can probably see, you don't get up to much more than 20 miles an hour, so it's hardly a test of your high-speed riding skills or even your ability to drive in traffic, because in reality then there was far less traffic on the roads than there is now. So we've turned left and we're going to turn left again. Now I think back in the day this wasn't a traffic light controlled junction. I think it was just a normal junction if memory serves me right. I can't really remember, to be honest, it's a long time ago. But nevertheless, this is what I had to do. So as you can see, very stressful. Very stressful. Not. So I probably didn't have to wait this long at the traffic lights, because there were no traffic lights, it was a junction. But we basically just carried on turning left. So if anything, the test proved you could turn left and you're not getting up to much speed. And then we turn left again here, and we're ultimately back to where we started. So I'm just going to pull over for a moment here, because you don't really want to see that again. But I think, if memory serves me right, I did about 3 loops around here, and I think on the 3rd loop, as we got round the corner, that's when the instructor stepped out to do the emergency stop. Now as you saw there, you're not exactly doing a speed that would define you to need to do an emergency stop. So it was more like a controlled braking stop. And because I was riding a KE175, which had obviously long fork travel at the front, that helped because it gave the impression that I was braking hard. But nevertheless, that was it. That was the emergency stop. So I'd stopped by him. He thanked for me doing the emergency stop, and he said, okay, ride back to the test centre. So that's what I did. So we arrived back at the test centre. He's standing there with his clipboard. I think he asked me a few more questions on the highway code. I can't really remember, if I'm being honest. And then he looked at me and he said, congratulations, you've passed your motorcycle test. So the main feeling I had at that point wasn't the one that you'd expect, which would, you probably expect it to be, right, you can go and ride any bike now, go and buy yourself a big fast bike. It wasn't that, no. It was the kind of kudos that I knew I'd receive the next day when I got to work and parked my bike in the bike sheds without L plates on. Because back then, most young lads went on apprenticeships, and I was no different. I was on an apprenticeship, so I worked in a factory, so everybody had a bike back then. You could ride up to a 250 on a provisional licence, it wasn't a problem. But very few actually took the tests, but the ones who did, it was kind of like a badge of honour to remove your L plates. And it made you no different as a rider, you know, one day you didn't have L plates on, the next day you did. But nevertheless, yeah, that was how you passed your test back in 1981. Amazing. Right, so back to 2026. Still riding, still enjoying it. Very fortunate to have my licence. Really glad I did it back then. Yeah. Funny to think about it in those in that context now, looking back. So, were you the same? Did you have to do very little to pass your test? Or have you had to jump through all the hoops that it is taking the test today? Who knows? But if you've watched this far, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll do some more kind of vlogs in the future. Okay, if you're a biker, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.